In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, but behind the Iron Curtain, 10 secret locations remained. So hidden, so isolated, the world forgot they existed. From islands of bioweapons to submarine bases carved inside mountains, these are the last echoes of a vanished empire. But one question remains. Which of these Soviet sites is still guarded, even today? Let's find out. High in the Balkan Mountains of Bulgaria, a strange concrete UFO watches silently over the valleys below. It was built to glorify the Communist Party, a symbol of power, unity, and control. Once, its halls were filled with red banners, glowing stars, and endless mosaics of heroes. But after 1989, the light went out, the communist regime collapsed. In 1992, the monument was closed, its doors locked, and the building left to the weather and trespassers. Without maintenance, wind, snow, and vandalism accelerated its decay. Today, the UFO-shaped symbol of power still stands on the mountain peak, abandoned, dangerous, yet strangely magnetic. A team of conservators has begun to map its future, but the walls remain cracked, the mosaics half gone, and access remains limited. The mountain waits. Deep beneath the cliffs of Crimea lies a secret the world wasn't meant to see. The Balaklava submarine base, carved straight into the mountain, once hidden on every Soviet map. Built in the 1950s, during the height of the Cold War, it could withstand a direct nuclear strike. Inside, submarines were repaired, refueled, and armed, all under complete secrecy. Thousands of workers lived and died here without ever speaking of it. To them, it wasn't just a base, it was a fortress beneath the sea. For nearly 4 decades, this hidden complex served the Black Sea Fleet, housing nuclear torpedoes and diesel submarines behind steel blast doors. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the tunnels were abandoned. The lights went out, and the sea slowly reclaimed the base. Today, Balaklava is no longer a military secret. It's a Cold War museum, where visitors walk through the same submarine tunnels that once prepared weapons capable of destroying the world, a relic of power, and a reminder of how close humanity once came to the edge. In the middle of what used to be the Aral Sea lies an island that once didn't exist on any map. Vozrozhdeniya, the island of rebirth. But nothing here was ever meant to be reborn. Built by the Soviet Union during the Cold War, this remote island was one of the most secret and dangerous places on Earth. In the 1950s, as the race for global power grew colder, the Soviets turned to biology. They built laboratories, barracks, and docks, hidden in the center of the Aral Sea, far from any city, far from any witness. Officially, it was a research center for vaccines. In reality, it was a testing ground for biological weapons. Here, scientists experimented with anthrax, plague, tularemia, and smallpox. Entire colonies of bacteria were weaponized, stored in metal canisters, tested on animals, and sometimes on the air itself. Each experiment was classified, each mistake erased. Ships carried samples across the sea under armed escort. Vozrozhdeniya became a fortress of invisible death, guarded not by soldiers but by silence. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the scientists fled overnight. Equipment was abandoned, documents burned, and the laboratories sealed. But the microbes remained. In 2002, traces of live anthrax spores were discovered by American and Uzbek teams. Decades later, the desert was still contaminated. Today, the Aral Sea has dried away. Vozrozhdeniya is no longer an island. The sands have swallowed it whole. Rusted ships lie stranded in the desert. Cracked concrete walls and warning signs are all that remain of the Soviet Union's forgotten science. No scientists, no soldiers, no life. Hidden deep in the forests of Lithuania lies the first Soviet nuclear missile base ever built, Plokštine. From here, Soviet R-12 Divina missiles could reach any city in Europe in under 15 minutes, a silent threat aimed at the West in the early 1960s. Construction began in September 1960 in the remote Plokštinė forest, and by December 31st, 1962, the launch complex was operational. 4 silos lay concealed beneath reinforced concrete domes, connected by tunnels and guarded in total secrecy, equipped with R-12 missiles with thermonuclear warheads, weapons capable of mass destruction. The soldiers stationed here lived, trained and waited underground, behind walls of steel and concrete, ready for an order that luckily never came. When the Soviet Union collapsed and treaties were signed, the silos were emptied, the site was abandoned and security faded. Today, Plokstine is open to the public as the Cold War Museum. The launch shaft stands silent, the control room frozen in time, and the forest above hides the legacy of destruction ready to be unleashed. A place built to start the end, and now a monument to how close the world once came. High above the Arctic Circle, where the sea freezes for half the year and night lasts for months, lies a city that time forgot. Pyramiden, a place built not just to mine coal, but to prove that the Soviet dream could conquer even the end of the Earth. It began in 1910 when a Swedish company claimed this Arctic mountain for its coal. But in 1927, the Soviet Union bought the land and turned it into an experiment in ideology. Here, 1,000 kilometers from the nearest tree, Moscow built a model society, a shining outpost of socialism above the Arctic Circle. Workers came from every corner of the USSR. Engineers, teachers, doctors, all promised comfort, culture, and purpose in the middle of the ice. By the 1970s, Pyramiden was a wonder of the north. A heated swimming pool under a glass dome. A grand cultural palace where orchestras played. Greenhouses that grew cucumbers and flowers under the midnight sun. They called it the happiest town in the Arctic, but beneath the propaganda posters and smiling portraits of Lenin, reality was fragile. The coal was hard to mine. The cost of keeping life warm was crushing, and the Arctic didn't forgive mistakes. When the Soviet Union fell in 1991, Moscow's subsidies vanished overnight. Without support, the mine stopped. Families were ordered to leave. On a cold day in October 1998, the last ship departed the harbor, leaving behind 1,000 souls' worth of memories. They turned off the lights, locked the doors, and never came back. Today, Pyramiden stands exactly as it was left. Beds still made, books still open on desks, Lenin still staring toward the mountains. The Arctic cold has preserved everything, a perfect time capsule of a vanished world. Each year, only a handful of caretakers return. Tourists walk through silence, past the theater, the school, the empty playground. A city built to defy nature, now swallowed by it. Pyramiden, a monument not to power, but to how quickly dreams can freeze. History doesn't die, it hides. What you've seen is only one of many forgotten places. This is what remains of the Iron Curtain. File closed. Subscribe and open the next file.